Vertical angles are angles that are made by two intersecting lines. So if I draw two intersecting lines here, my vertical angles would be, one pair would be these two that are opposite of each other, and they would also be the two on the side that are also opposite from each other. So both of those, there's two pairs of vertical angles. It's important to know that all vertical angles are congruent. So that means if the angle on the top is 120 degrees, then the one on the bottom is 120 degrees as well. And then the one on the side would be 60 on one side. The other one would also have to be 60 because, again, vertical angles are congruent. So it says if angle AVC and angle BVD are vertical angles, so that means they're congruent. So if AVC is 60, what is BVD? Well, if AVC is congruent to BVD, then they're both going to be 60 degrees because they're going to be the same. If you wanted to see a picture of that, this would be AVC and BVD. And AVC we know is 60. The other one would also be 60. So I have, again, two vertical angles, AVD and BVC. We're told that AVD is 10x plus 15 and BVC is 45. We're supposed to solve for x and find measure of angle AVD. Well, again, we know that if they're vertical angles that they are going to be congruent. So that means that 10x plus 15 has to equal 45. And I can solve. So I need x's on one side and numbers on the other. I'm going to subtract 15 from both sides. I get 10x equals 30. And then I'm going to divide both sides by 10. And x equals 3. So that would be the answer for x. And it asks us to find AVD. Well, we can use some common sense because we can plug it in. So we have 10 times 3 plus 15. 10 times 3 is 30. Plus 15 is 45 degrees. All right, when we have two lines that intersect, or that intersect at a 90-degree angle, or right angle, they are called perpendicular. And the symbol for perpendicular is an upside down T. So when you see that symbol, that means that they're perpendicular. If I had two lines that looked like this, they would be perpendicular. They intersect at a 90-degree angle. Or perhaps they're turned sideways, but again, they intersect at a 90-degree angle. So that makes them right angles. There is a statement that says, and the question says, how many lines are perpendicular to a given line and contain a point? So that's saying if I have a line, so we're going to draw a line here, and I have this point that's not on this line, this question is asking me how many lines can I draw through that point that are perpendicular to the line I'm given, and the answer is 1. There's only one possible line that can be drawn so that it's perpendicular to the other one. When you start measuring things, a lot of times they ask you for length. Another way they can ask you for is distance. Especially on a graph, they can say, what is the distance between any two given points? So if you have a line that is perpendicular to a segment, so if I have a line segment, we're going to call this line segment AB, and the midpoint of this line is M, and there is a line that is perpendicular and it goes through M. This line is called a perpendicular. Question 1 says to find the measure of BAE. So we've been given this picture, and we're supposed to find the missing angle measures. So something to remember is that vertical angles are congruent. Okay, so just to kind of help you out, this one here, this 52, is going to be the same as this one here. So angle EAD, that's actually question 3. So I'm going to go ahead and answer that, is going to be 52 degrees. Now, the question number 1 asks you for the angle BAE. That's the angle made by connecting B to A to E. They didn't give us any information about that, and we didn't really talk about it in the notes, but here's what I want you to remember. If I were to draw a line, a half circle right here, this line represents half a circle. This is called a linear pair. And so if it's a linear pair, it's half a circle, then this angle that I'm missing, I'm going to call it X, plus the angle that I have, 52, has to add up to 180 degrees. So I can subtract 52 from both sides, and I get that X equals 128. So angle BAE would be 128 degrees. 4 through 7 is kind of a similar problem. It asked me to find the measures of the angles in the picture below. So number 5 asked me to find the measure of FXE, which is this one here. So FXE, if you were to draw the lines that make it up, it's this line and this line. And if I'm looking for FXE on this side, it has to be the same as the angle on this side because they are vertical angles. So the measure of FXE has to be 85. It's got to be the same as CXE. Number 7 asks us to find the measure of BXF. So BXF, that would be this angle right here. Well, I don't have any information about that. And the opposite, its vertical angle is on this side, and I don't have any information about that one either. But if I think about this line CXE, this bottom side could represent half a circle. So that means that those 3 angles, 85 plus 20 plus, I'm going to call this X because I don't know what it is, has to add up to 180. 85 plus 20 is 105. Plus X equals 180. And to get X by itself, I'm going to subtract 105 from both sides. So I get that X equals 75. So BXF has to be 75 degrees. Question 9 says, what is the measure of BAC? Well, because I have these 2 lines that are drawn here, I know that BAC and EAD are vertical angles, so that means that X plus 10 has to equal 2X minus 10. I can solve for X. To do that, I want X's on one side, my numbers on the other. So I'm going to subtract 10 from both sides. So X equals 2X minus 20. Then I'm going to subtract 2X from both sides. And negative X equals negative 20. The last thing I'm going to do to get X by itself is divide both sides by negative 1. The reason I'm dividing by negative 1 is because there's an imaginary 1 in front of this X here. And it is negative because the X was negative. And negative 20 divided by negative 1 is going to give me a positive 20 for X. Now, the question didn't ask me what was X. The question asked me what was the measure of BAC. Well, BAC was X plus 10, but I just worked it out and I know that X is really 20, and 20 plus 10 is 30. So 30 degrees would be my answer.